there, YouTube. I'm back again today for another Splinterlands video, and today I'm very excited to talk to you about the cards that I would recommend you considering leveling up first. Now, why these particular cards? Because eventually what will happen, if you like this game, is that you'll start getting level 2 summoners. You'll start leveling up your summoners in the game. So this is going to be talking about the cards that specifically, once you level up your summoners, you should consider leveling these ones up because they gain a lot more value, at least in my personal opinion. So the first thing you might not realize when you get to level 2, a lot of people, I didn't when I first started, was that means you can also use common cards up to level 3, because you'd be thinking, oh, just level 2, I can use level 2 cards. No, it's not that simple. You can't even use level 2 legendary cards. But here's the list. Let's start. So first is the Dark Ferryman. This one, obviously, if you've leveled up to level 2 Death, and the Dark Ferryman in itself becomes a much more interesting card when you hit level 2 because they get the Cripple ability, which means each time an enemy is hit by a monster with Cripple, it loses 1 maximum health. Now, this is a great card to have, especially when you get higher numbers, and so you might be dealing with tanks that have really high health, or people who are healing their tanks, because that's very common in the game as well. And for 3 costs to have that sort of special ability, really fantastic card to consider getting up to level 2, and one you can start using, as soon as you get that Death Summoner up to level 2. So the Dark Ferryman, definitely one to check out. Goes from having no special abilities to having a very unique special ability, especially at the lower ranks. You don't see too many Cripple cards when you're slumming around in Bronze and Silver. Continuing on to the next card, we have the Chaos Agent. It's that one generic one you throw in every once in a while when you really just don't have much to put in. Well, when you get them to level 2, they start to have dodge, which means they're less likely to get hit. They're better at evading melee and range attacks, obviously not magic. But still, this just makes it a little bit more viable, a little bit more useful. This isn't a really particularly sexy card, so we'll gloss over it. But it is a good one to have, especially considering it's generic. And you can always have this as an option as 1, unless you're only doing evens, but that's a whole other ballpark. Chaos Agent. I know, it's not a fun one to level up, but consider it. Just to level 2, get that evade. It really does help out. Speaking of helping out, one of my favorite cards in the game right now, that is Uraeus. And the big gain that the snake gets is that once it goes to level 2, it gets 2 attack instead of 1 attack. And yes, as I mentioned earlier, you can get the purple ones up to level 2 as well. And there's not too many purple ones on this list because I want to keep the list relatively cheap. I want to keep it kind of on the download because when you're first starting a game, you don't know if you want to splunk down on that cash. But Uraeus right now is relatively cheap, and it's a fantastic card. And there's just so many other great sneak cards that you can combo with this snake. Highly recommend getting it to level 2 because that extra 1 damage really does matter, especially when someone might have Harden, where you have to get at least 2 damage just to hit the thing. Period. Great card in my personal opinion to get to level 2. Continuing on, we have another cheap one, the level 1. We have the Radiated Scorcher, which gets the Shatter ability. Target armor is destroyed when hit by an attack from a monster with Shatter. And if you even get a hit off with the Radiated Scorcher, you're getting your value's worth. But if you can actually break something's shields, that is spectacular. It just makes this card that much more viable, that much more live. And it's a relatively cheap card to get it. Now, you do have to get this one, up to level 3. Now, because once again, you can still use it as long as it is a common card. So since this is a common card, I'd recommend getting this one up to level 3. And let's see, it's dirt cheap right now. We'll check out that in a second. Yeah, so a level 3, just if you want to go buy it, is 59 cents, so it's not much at all. All right, continuing on, another level 1 that gets a pretty awesome special ability, once again at level 3, it's almost like they planned it that way, is the mycelic morphoid, which gains the Thorns ability, which just makes it so much more useful as just splunking in your backline. Because if they have something with sneak that comes back there, boom, they're going to get hit by it, they're going to get punished. And especially if you have armor somehow, I don't know what you're rocking, I don't know what your kit you're working on, but this really does make the mycelic morphoid just more of a live wire and a card that you'll probably get to the table a lot more often. Get to the table. I'm used to talking board games. Yeah, definitely want to consider getting up there. Plus, next one of my favorite cards in the entire game. I don't see people use this card. They need to put more respect on the baby unicorn's name, especially if you can get the baby unicorn up to level 3 and start using with your level 2 light summoner, because then it actually does get 1 damage. But you're not here for the damage, honestly. You're here for the strength and 7, which means all friendly monsters have increased health. You know, because this makes it so that your glass DPS that are just about to get shattered are a little bit more healthy. And if it does get to the front, it can actually do a little bit of damage. Just a fantastic little card to play with, and I recommend getting it up to level 3, and then you can actually start getting some damage value out of it as well. That's the baby unicorn. Continuing onward, Zenith Monk. Not a particularly fun, amazing card, but let me tell you, once you get to, you know, so what is it, like Bronze 2, where you start getting special conditions, when you get that poison condition, the Zenith Monk is worth his weight in gold. Because you can just slot him in somewhere in the middle, somewhere towards the back, and while everybody else, everybody else is going to be taking poison damage, the Zenith Monk is going to be able to heal himself, and all you have to do is get it to level 2, and then you can start using it. Not in every single colored deck. Zenith Monk, I would say this is one I would highly recommend when you're first starting the game, getting it leveled up to level 2. Once you start dealing with level 2 summoners, because you will get value out of it. Just like Earthquake, same thing. You know, it's going to be dealing 2 damage, but then he's going to be healing 2 damage. Next, we have the Eden Spearman. This card, I tell you what, this card is just an absolute beast. Just period. You know, doing 3 damage. And it's relatively inexpensive right now. What is it? 29 cents per card. But if you can get this thing up to level 3, it gets the piercing ability, which is a vastly underutilized ability, I think, especially at the lower ranks. But which essentially means it will break through the shield and then start to damage the squishy inner middle. And having this as your backline tank just is an absolute smasher. You know, because here's the other thing. The great thing about this is this card helps out your tank a lot as well, especially if your tank is at lower speed. So let's say you have a tank up front that's a 1-speed or a 2-speed. Well, then the Eden Spearman's going to get their shot off first, and they're potentially going to break the armor and start weakening it. It's just great card. Highly recommend leveling them up to level 3 because you can use them right from the jump with the level 2 summoner. Continuing on, we have the Nightmare. Now, this is a card that I really love because when you think of death, you don't think of blast damage too much, where you're essentially going to be attacking the main person and then attacking the people next to them. But this is a really hard tank to use if you have it at level 1. It's still a fun card, but getting it to a level 2 at the very least gets you up to 2 damage, which I think is a big deal here. And then if you can, getting it up to level 3 and getting it up to 5 health, because yes, you can still utilize this as a level 3 with a level 2 summoner. With 5 health, it just becomes a lot more difficult to hit and a much more viable card. That's a Nightmare. Check this one out. Very fun card to utilize. Especially, I love the blast damage, just knowing that you're weakening that second person up, breaking their shield or whatever. It just helps so much. Next, we have the Dax Paragon. I said I was going to try and keep the purple, the pinkish cards. The uncommons? No, it's rare. These ones are rare. The rare cards, not too many of them in here, but this one really, I think, does show its mettle. So first thing is, it's only going to cost 2 mana, which is fantastic. But once you get it up to level 2, then it gets the Amplify ability. Increases magical effect, return fire, and thorn damage to all enemy monsters by 1. And if you happen, this is a really fun combo that I love to utilize, if you happen to have a level 2 Dragon Summoner, so you could use him, and then use the Jinchwala, who has the thorn damage, the really good dragon with the thorn damage, and then the damage is also amplified as well, and she has an extra armor. Oh my gosh, you get so many free wins, like at the lower ranks, and I'm going to do that eventually. I'm going to use my top 10 combo cards, just cards I love to combo together, and I think they really work well to kill things. But the Dax Paragon, just a really great card to get up to level 2. A little bit more on the pricey side, especially when you're first starting the game, but, you know, at 99 cents a card. But rock solid once you get them up to level 2. So highly recommend that. So you just mentioned it's $4. You know, it's not great, but it's not terrible. And then last, I have an honorable mention here. I hate for this to be a kind of a cop-out on here, but I want to put an honorable mention. This one I didn't put on the list because this one is, I think, a little bit more, you know, $2.38 per card. So this is where you're starting to get to a more expensive card. But the Goblin Shaman is just a great card I think you should consider renting or purchasing, period. Because it weakens everybody by 1 health, reduce the enemy health of all monsters. And even if you just get it level 1, just having it there. But if you can get it up to level 3, this one now becomes a much more useful card, especially in fire, which doesn't have a huge amount of magic damage, because now it's dealing 1 magic damage in addition to weakening all the enemy monsters. And I've just had a great deal of success with this goblin shaman up at level 3. When I was rocking level 2 reds. And so it's one I recommend checking out. But there you go. Those are the top 10 cards that I recommend you consider leveling up once you get yourself a level 2 summoner. If you enjoy this list, please be sure to let me know in the comments below, because I have a whole bunch of other stuff, and if you'd like, I could keep doing this to level 3 and level 4, level 5. But let me know in the comments below, and as always, thanks for your time, YouTube. Bye-bye. Oh, I should say